And welcome to the big show. Here we are, our very first ever outside broadcast, an OB like they do in like real radio land. We're actually coming to you live from the Kimberley-Clark toilet paper manufacturing plant in Millicent, South Australia. This is the Variety Hour podcast with myself, Sergio Paradise, and runaway baboon, Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, well, I am looking forward to our new economy based on toilet paper rolls.
Did you know that 90% of Australia's toilet paper is made in South Australia?
Oh, really?
Do I need to mention how appropriate that might be? It's South Australia's biggest export since the pie floater.
Really?
Or Tex Walker's nose.
Is that what it is? Or Patrick Dangerfield.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. So It is a bit crazy. I was at the supermarket yesterday.
Have you stocked up?
I've got like a normal amount. Yeah. Like I've got enough, but I don't have like... Well, I haven't gone out and bought a pallet or something.
We sort of need some, but I don't want to look like one of those idiots who goes in with and comes out with a 24-pack.
I don't know. You never know what's like the thing when everything I've read about the virus. Obviously my several medical degrees, but when people say, "Oh, it's going to be terrible," or there's another mob saying everyone's overreacting. Yeah. Everything I've read is, it all depends basically on how these new viruses mutate. Yeah. And so unless you know which way it's going to go, none of us actually know what's going to happen. Like it's a risk management
But I do think in the last few days, people now here in Australia are starting to go, geez, you know what? We're not isolated from this. This might get a bit messy. I
think also the fact that they've had the bushfires, everyone's a bit like they can see what happens when everything goes a bit pear-shaped. But I think I kind of do laugh because there's the people online who are being sort of taking photos of people taking heaps or shelves empty, and then there's people going, "You guys are all idiots for buying toilet paper." Yeah, I can see a future. You flash forward 6 months. Where all the people who were mocking the people who bought toilet paper suddenly going, does anyone have any toilet paper?
It's now $250 a gram on the black market.
Do you have any? So, I don't know, like, none of us know. We don't know what we're talking about.
No, of course we don't.
I mean, all I've ever thought is it's probably worth having a couple of weeks' worth of food as a backup no matter what. For any
That's probably not a bad idea anyway.
If it's stuff you're going to use anyway, but you don't need to go and buy a pallet.
No.
And I love how it seems to be toilet paper seems to be the thing.
that was like, I reckon it's a uniquely Australian thing. Is it?
Dunny roll.
Stock up dunny rolls. That's right. We'll be right. I mean, you can't eat them.
It's really annoying because my hobby is building castles with toilet paper. It's suddenly a very expensive hobby. So anyway.
See, most people outgrow that by kinder.
Now, we're recording this a bit later this week, but we are doing another week in a row, which is bad. So it's 3 in a row.
3 weeks in a row.
Now, did you watch State of Origin? Just cover it off before we move on to other things.
Yes, I did.
I went.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I found it very enjoyable to watch.
Did you?
Yeah, because, the pressure and the brutality wasn't quite there as you'd think.
Yeah.
But it was just good watching a whole bunch of really good footballers playing football.
Yeah.
I just sat back. I sat back with my two boys who are football mad and just admired the skills of these players, basically.
Yeah,
Didn't worry too much about the contest. So I did get interesting in the last quarter when Victoria kicked away.
Yeah.
But, it just looked... It was a pretty much what it was an exhibition game, really.
It was a total... I found it a bit... Watching it there...
Yeah.
I was a bit...
Did you lose interest a bit?
I was bored. I was really bored.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me, and AFLX already taught us this, which is interesting for the next thing we're going to talk about. But when the physicality, no one's being tagged. Yeah. There's no physicality. There's no tackling really to speak of. There's no. The game does lose something quite significant.
I agree. I mean, the lack of tackling. There was. I described it. There was no tackling, but there was dispossessing. Like players dispossessed their opponents of the ball without grinding anyone.
And it was just so easy to run from stoppages and just so there was lots of moments where there's like 8 guys all running in a line down the ground, just unopposed, and So what I do find interesting about this argument about there was and I knew the media would do this. They all went, "Oh, State of Origin should come back."
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't State of Origin.
No.
No, if you're harking back to what State of Origin was when it was like South Australia versus Victoria or something like that, and they genuinely wanted to win.
That's a different ballgame.
And it was often brutal and all that. It was, and State of Origin in the NRL.
Yeah, I mean, that's life or death in that game.
But this was, I mean, and everyone went, well, it was for charity, and I get that, right? So I've no problem with that game happening. I went along and all that and donated some money and,
all good.
But I don't mind all that. So, but if you take the charity element just purely out of it, I would never get, it was kind of interesting because it was a one-off. And if they didn't having the, it's basically Victoria versus not Victoria, which is sort of. But if they took all that away, I was like, if it was back regularly, you'd just be bored of that after a while. It would become like
the only way I see it, but having any sort of future is to do it every 2 or 3 years, and make it specifically the states. You may remember those great Western Australian jumpers and the South Australian jumpers. Now, I don't know if New South Wales and what have you is ever going to be strong enough on their own.
Yeah.
But the three big states, WA, South Australia and Victoria, that could have some legs in it, I reckon, because the footy would get a bit fair dinkum.
Yeah.
And players do love to represent their state. Nobody gets really excited about being a part of the All-Stars, especially in that sort of...
No, you're not going to bleed for the jumper or something.
With a gold star on the front.
Yeah.
And their dodgy socks. But, I mean, I just found it a nice... It's a bit like going to watch, I don't know, Djokovic play Federer in an exhibition game. You stand there, there's nothing at stake.
Yeah.
You just sit back and admire blokes who have got much greater ability than you ever dreamed of having. And just enjoy it for what it was.
What was interesting is I thought, given how not physical it was, how it was AFL if you just had the pure skills but none without any of the physical nature of it, is we had the news this week coming out that Polly Farmer, after he passed away, his brain was tested by was the researchers at the Australian Sports Brain Bank and the University of Sydney, and it was found that he had a case of after studying his brain that he had what's called CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy or something.
It's big in the NFL.
It
and
is.
It's brain
Did
injury.
you see that movie from last year about that, the American one, Concussion?
With
Will Smith?
Yeah.
I mean, it has become a huge thing in the NFL, and despite their helmets, it is such a head-on collision kind of sport. It's no great surprise that it's been over there, but it seems to be, getting a lot more attention here in AFL circles.
Well, I just think they've done the research here, and it's saying, well, this is the first bit. And they said at 64, Polly Farmer was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and had elements of depression or mood swings, explosivity, loss of attention and concentration, short-term memory loss and headaches, which are all things that CTE seems to cause. And then they've also had the problem with CTE in the States where it's sort of this depression and everything, and it's led to a lot of guys a relatively young age killing themselves. So it's been
in some extreme cases, killing other people. Just the explosion of violence.
The problem at the moment is you can only be diagnosed with it during an autopsy.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. You can, because concussion itself is sort of a reactive thing to the trauma in your brain, but once you get over it, apparently there's no real other ways that you can measure it with MRIs or scans and stuff like that.
Which means you could be living with it and people could suspect you've got it, but they wouldn't actually know. So, just so people know, you have to actually be dead to have an autopsy.
Yeah.
It's not something you can do, which is that must make it very hard to combat.
Yeah.
Because you can't sort of say to someone early on, you've got this, you don't know.
Yeah.
Liam Picken, former Bulldogs premiership player, he revealed he plans to donate his brain after he dies for this as well. So you'll see a lot of that because that's happened a lot in the States.
Exactly. And Warwick Kappa's offered his too. They said, we're pretty right, thanks.
We're good. Yeah. It's got to meet a minimum threshold in size for us to be able to do it. It's sort of, it is a worry because I do genuinely think taking the physical element out, as much as, people will say, well, let's take it out if this is the problem.
Yeah.
The game doesn't. We like the physicality, so this is the nature of the sport. So it is a problem they have. And secondly, there seems to be two bits in what I've read of. There's a limit in understanding in what is the thing that actually causes this. Is it
exactly
the big concussions? You have some of the players, I know, I've talked to Jonathan Brown about this before. I think he had 8 or 9 concussions in his career of significance. But there's also just the little constant bumps to the head that you don't
that's right. I mean, there's so much is unknown about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that makes it, or is going to make it, very hard for the AFL or any other collision sport league, put it that way, to change their rules or the way the game's played, because you can get concussed on the footy field in a tackle. Your head might hit the ground accidentally. You might clash heads with another player.
Yeah.
I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be an accidental.
You can't fully remove the risk of it.
No,
really.
They're not going to remove tackling or the physicality of the game, and players are going to run into each other and tackle each other. So
but it's also just the little bumps where, like I remember reading in boxing, there's been a long-term argument, and there's been research into it, where some people argue that bare-knuckle boxing is actually safer than the gloves, because you get hit once or twice, a cut opens.
Down you go.
Down you go, or you have to stop the thing.
Yeah.
But with gloves, because it's so much harder to cut someone, and you get lots of
little
blows. Hits. So you might, instead of getting hit 2 or 3,
in a 12-round bout or something.
You get hit hundreds of times.
And see, back in those days, it was known, former boxers were known as punch drunk. People, I guess they recognised that there was some sort of, follow on or result.
And I mean, you listen to anything Anthony Mundine says. You go, something's going on there. So I think it's going to be really interesting.
Just on that, didn't he just recently, the last couple of days, say that coronavirus
was a few weeks ago.
It was a hoax?
He said, a few weeks ago, he said it was a hoax to get people to vaccinate themselves.
That's right.
But I've noticed he hasn't rushed over to Wuhan to disprove all of this to everyone.
We'll put $1,000 on the table for somebody to get a photo of Anthony Mundine buying a heap of toilet paper.
Now moving on further, so that's going to be an ongoing story.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do there, but I mean, and it works all the way down. I mean, as soon as, like, junior footy, mums and people are going, I don't want my little bloke getting knocked out every 3 weeks.
Well, I do worry about contact sports. Are we going to end up? I don't want to live in a world where it's just tennis.
No. Nobody wants to live in that world.
I'm not too sure I really want that. Now, the Cricket T20 World Cup is going on at the moment. Australia managed to get through, beat New Zealand, but they lost Elise Perry in the process. Yeah. So, which is huge.
Well, in any sport at the highest level, it makes it hard when you lose your best player, and she is their best player by a mile.
Bat and bowl.
Yeah, she's a star.
She's the all-rounder Australian men's team's been looking for forever. But this is the thing I found really weird. So they're playing tonight against Sri Lanka, right?
In Sydney. Allegedly.
Now, it's the problem is it's raining up there and looks like raining quite a lot. It's also raining down here in Melbourne, which should add like a lot at the moment, but it's between 15 and 30 mil of rain forecast during it's a semi-final double header up at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Now, this is the bit I find completely bizarre, given this is a World Cup and it's T22, so it's not like you got to reschedule 5 days.
Yeah.
If the match just gets rained out, they got to pay to get a result. You got to, apparently, even with rain delays, both teams have to play 10 overs.
Yeah,
which you should be able to get in, but not if it just rains the whole time.
Sure.
If it just rains the whole time and they either don't play at all or they don't make the 10
just
overs,
get rained out. Yeah,
Australia's just eliminated from the tournament. There's no reserve day scheduled
This is
except
like
for the final.
that sort of count back sort of
under
thing.
the tournament rules, the group winners progress to the final. So if you've previously won a group, which Australia came second to India, if a match cannot be completed, so that's because of our loss to India in the first thing, means you're just out. That's it. So I just find that
There's
for
no
a
plan B.
professional, that's like you'd expect that in a junior footy or
Cricket
junior
scheduling
cricket.
this year is just haven't they just ticked every box
It's
there?
just amazing. I just find that astounding. I can't believe it's not a bigger deal that you just they go, oh, it rained. And it's like, well, it's cricket. You know,
So that'll mean who plays in the final then on Sunday at the MCG?
It will be India would go through.
India and South Africa.
Or I did Sri Lanka, I don't think, won their thing. So that would be. But that just makes no sense to me. Like, surely there's an easier way to fix that. I don't know why they would even do that. It just makes no sense whatsoever.
And it'd be handy if Sydney had a stadium with a roof on it too. That wouldn't be a bad idea at some point.
Wouldn't you just go, right, tomorrow, if they don't get the game in tonight, first thing tomorrow morning, we don't care if it's 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's a T20 game. We need 3 hours. Like, just do it tomorrow. Like, it's better to get that and have the final be legit teams in it.
It can't be that hard to have another ground on standby or organise it or something. Or I don't know. Just get a match played. Yeah,
just get it done.
As you say, it's not a 5-day test match. It's not a 50 overs. I mean, it's a T20 game. You can do it in a matter of a few hours.
Yeah, because it means you got a final with two teams that didn't win a semi-final. They just happened to get in through. I hate these. It's like when England won that, or I argue didn't, against New Zealand because it was a count back on boundaries. Yeah. I mean, it's just pointless in every way. And
what'll happen Sunday night? I mean, for all these people who bought tickets expecting Australia to make through. Now, if Australia don't make it through on merit, well, bad luck. Yeah. But for them to miss out on this regard, it's just going to reflect poorly on the whole tournament and international cricket as it stands.
The more I read about it, the more I just thought, this is bonkers who's running this. Good friend of this show, Sun Yang.
Yeah, very good friend.
I think last time when we were recording this, we talked about this briefly, but the announcement hasn't come in. He has been suspended for 8 years.
Which is pretty much in competitive swimming. That's a life sentence.
It went to the whole of the Court of Arbitration of Sport because FINA cleared him, bizarrely. And much like sort of what happened with the Essendon case where the AFL cleared the players and then it was appealed. WADA appealed that to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. And so you have this situation where they then find that he is guilty. Now, what happened, for those that don't remember, it's totally bizarre. He gets some people come in. He's in China. They come to test him. They show him the accreditation and everything. He signs a letter. I read the full Court of Arbitration in Sport finding, which was like 78 pages this morning. So some of this is contested by Sun Yang, obviously. Yeah. They show up. They show their documentation. They show their credentials and everything. He signs a form saying, I consent to have my blood and urine samples taken.
Yep.
Now, they then take the blood sample. Then one of the people there who's doing the drug test, and they've admitted to this, takes like 3 photos of him with their camera phone because they were excited to meet him.
Oh, yeah.
He gets annoyed by this because it is inappropriate. They're not meant to do that, right? Like, there are photos sometimes taken to show that they showed that the drug testers have to show they showed up, or that they've gone and done the test and all that. But you're not meant to. This person was just sneakily taking some, and they're apparently blurry images. So that person was asked to leave and not be part of the urine collection. But at this point, Sun Yang sort of blew up and started cracked it and said,
which you do when you're on the roids.
And said, start questioning all their ID and everything again, right? And they had a generic letter saying they were there to do the test, not a specific about him. It was just a generic letter of authority to do drug tests.
That's their job.
So he then calls his manager. His mum drives over. They all get in this huge argument, basically. They then say, well, this is all unauthorized. The drug testers are saying it's not. You're like, and we've told the person who took the photo is inappropriate, and they're no longer in the room. For you to stop this now is going to have serious impact on your career.
Yeah, it will be a violation of the rules.
Yeah. He still goes nuts, and actually security they get the blood vials back and they smash them.
Yeah.
Some of the containers
Not
and stuff like that.
Not looking good for Sun Yang at this point. Yeah.
So FINA let him off, which is a whole other story we'll get into. It goes to the Court Arbitration Court. They find that the accreditation was all legit, fine. He'd been notified that he was going to have a drug test. The person who was drug testing him had drug tested him before, a few years ago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they basically, and they said the fact that the person took the photo was inappropriate, but was not in any way a problem with the drug test. And secondly, and this apparently happens quite a lot, they're told, the athletes, that even if you've got concerns about the drug test, you're better to do it and then lodge your...
And then worry about it later.
Well, and then lodge your complaints about how it was done, or it wasn't done properly, or the way they did it. And that's the way it normally happens. You don't just go, well, I'm not going to do it at all.
And then smash the blood vials.
Yeah. So from that Court of Arbitration of Sport, and this is, the penalty is all locked in, right? Like they don't have any discretion over it. He had 4 years for doing this. So he only got 4 years for this.
Right.
But he's been caught before with a prohibited substance, which means the penalty gets doubled because it's not his first offence, and hence he's out for 8 years.
And so you got to ask the question, why did FINA clear him in the first place?
Well, this is the interesting thing. So since then, a bunch of people have come out and said that basically the international governing body FINA is compromised. I don't know if they're opening calling them corrupt, but it's compromised in that they want to win over China. They're being nice to China. Yeah. They don't want to have stars go down.
Nobody likes to offend China, do they?
No. And they don't want the stars to go down. And so certain other people, like an Australian, Bill Sweetenham, who was Australia's head Olympic swimming coach, has been at 4 times and was the boss of the British Olympic swim team in Athens. He said time has run out for any consultation or compromise with FINA, basically saying that the head of FINA, Cornel Marculescu, who is a former Romanian ex-water polo player, and he's run FINA for the past 35...
He'd have a bit of nasty about him.
Yeah, 34 years he's run it. They're basically saying FINA is massively compromised and soft on this stuff.
Yeah.
And the USADA, which is like the ASADA of America, he said national federations need to step up and challenge FINA instead of leaving it to swimmers like Mac Horton to take all the heat. The Swimming Australia Chief Executive Lee Russell said they intend to she expects to speak to her international counterparts about all this. But the problem you have is, one, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, won't want any breakaway swimming body. And FINA is basically the voting system protects it, because smaller countries which don't even have a swimming history and don't even swim, basically get a vote.
They get a vote.
It
just gets murkier and dodgier.
The
further up the ladder you go.
Yeah, so this is why they don't have a lot of legitimately. So it's totally a bizarre thing. It makes no sense at all about.
And he's got old Sun Yang, our mate. He's got no real way to appeal this or come back from here, has he?
He does. He can apply to the Swiss High Court like the Essendon players did.
Of course.
So he's still got a chance. But you know how there's a lot of criticism just about generally with FINA's problem, because basically, there was all this stuff with, China back in the 90s, and FINA turned a blind eye to that too. And they've shown a real unwillingness
before that,
to sort of take this on. So it's totally going to be a bizarre outcome because Sun Yang is just so popular in China.
Yeah, I mean, he's a superstar in China. I mean,
yeah,
and he's a big physical specimen too.
Yeah,
especially for the Chinese. But I wonder how he'll go at the Swiss High Court with his spokesperson Stephen Dank is going to be there.
Oh, well, Steve Dank says he's got an Excel spreadsheet that proves Sun Yang is innocent. So anyway, if you want a bit of fun, just tweet about Sun Yang being a drug cheat.
Have you been trolled lately?
If you mention him at all, you get like 1,000 Chinese bots attack you. It's quite fun.
Yeah, well, I remember last time I did it. It was great.
So the funny thing about this, and this is where FINA are also like completely compromised on all these drug things, is when Mac Horton refused to mount the podium alongside Sun at the World Championships last year, FINA fined Mac Horton, and he was also disciplined by Swimming Australia. So Swimming Australia, so it just shows like when the athletes are trying to get a clean sport and these guys, the bodies are punishing the people pointing out.
Once again,
cheating,
Once again, athletes, I mean, so many of them, have to carry the can for incompetent or dodgy administrators.
I have a theory, though, that it is impossible, structurally impossible, to run an international sports organisation and not be corrupt.
Yeah,
because you think about it, the IOC have been corrupt, FIFA have been corrupt, FINA are corrupt.
Yeah.
Like, F1 Grand Prix is at its moments. Like, you can barely think of, and it's almost like to run these things and have because you've suddenly got all these countries to get the votes. You almost have to do dodgy deals to become a president or on the executive of these things. Like, it's almost impossible. If you were clean, you don't get in
across the board,
But you know what I mean? If you're clean and don't
you won't get
scratch
anywhere.
the back of all these countries that are willing to sort of
It's like politics. For every politician in the world has talks themselves up for transparency and honesty and this and that. But you're not going to get even past pre-selection unless you've done a few dodgy deals or you're a bit sus either way.
It's just amazing. Like, I just don't think you can actually do it. I think to stay in those top jobs for a long time, you just basically have to cut deals with all sorts of people. Yeah. Some more dodgy than others, and you need the dodgy people to get the votes.
An international sporting federation, we call it that, has ever retired penniless either.
No. Maybe that's what we should be aiming for. Now, we've got a bunch of different coronavirus-related news here coming up. One's the AFL have been forced to cancel the Shanghai game between St Kilda and Port Adelaide.
We had a feeling this might happen, didn't we?
We sort of knew last week a bit, but now it's all sort of confirmed. So it's round 11. It's now going to be played at the Saints home ground of Marvel Stadium. Apparently the Victorian government stepped in with some money. Yeah. Because Cairns were trying to poach this.
Yeah. The Cairns wanted it. But what is this? Does Victorian major events really need to handball money to get St Kilda to play a game at their home ground?
And get Port Adelaide St Kilda here? Well, they're trying to tie it to, this is about, they're going to support the Chinese restaurants in Chinatown as a link to this game. In a normal thing, if it hadn't been for the stuff about it being in China, would anyone except for a small group of people really care about St Kilda playing Port at Marvel? I mean, St Kilda obviously would, but beyond that, it's not one you're going to rush to.
No,
it's
exactly.
Not that, it's not like a huge thing. So anyway, that's been decided. That's sort of, I mean, China's at least, that's the first bit of good news China's had in a while. Normally you quarantine Port Adelaide supporters from other people, not the other way around.
Yeah. And there's no Gil McLaughlin going to the game. I mean,
you don't have
there isn't all the AFL hierarchy and hangers on.
They would have had an excuse at least this year for there being no crowd.
Yeah.
So I think the TV stations will be happy because they hated having to send all this stuff over there. It was a massive...
Cost them a bomb.
Pain. So it's the first thing that sort of, affected this in a way, if you could call it that. The AFL's also declared it's ready for any potential curveballs the coronavirus throws at the upcoming men's season, including the possibility of staging closed games. So there won't be any. It'll be a TV event. There won't be any.
Yeah.
We talked about this potentially with the Olympics, although they say this is going
No
full steam
spectators
ahead.
whatsoever.
No spectators, just the players. But God, I wish this had happened last year in Melbourne season. I would have paid good money to be locked out. The amount of time I wasted going to Melbourne games last year.
Exactly.
Was a waste of my life. Do you think that's a likely scenario? I mean, it'd be interesting. I suppose it's better than no footy at all.
I guess so, but it's hard to imagine that it will get to that stage.
Well, other ones, Serie A and some other European matches in Italy have been played in empty stadiums.
Yeah.
They've actually done that before when riots have broken out and they've sort of punished the fans. But my favourite thing of all the sports of the various things is the NBA sent a memo to teams on the weekend.
Yeah.
In the National Basketball Association in America, advising players to opt for fist bumps over handshakes.
Oh, of course.
And not borrow pens from fans to sign autographs. So that's what they've been told to do.
Oh, well, they better introduce that to the AFL as well.
Will you be going for fist bumps now over handshakes?
Or maybe that little boot kick. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, or the boot shaking with your feet.
You touch toes.
Do you think yours and my long lingering cuddles are over when we welcome each other?
I'll tell you, it'll make it difficult to record this podcast if there's no spooning allowed.
That's just giving everyone a terrible image at home. This is the gear people are here for.
Hang on, they're not pillows.
Is this just got a bit of 50 Shades of Grey?
Or planes, trains and automobiles.
So anyway, it's getting serious if sport's being affected.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do like that. I'm going to be fist bumping people like crazy now,
I
whether they like
do
it
it
or
to
not.
total strangers.
Most people are quite keen to not touch me, coronavirus or not, so I'm not too worried about it. Given all this change with the overseas stuff, though, it's good to know that GWS and Essendon have announced they're full steam ahead on their USA plan.
Yeah. See, when one junket stops, another one opens.
We've talked about this briefly before, but it seems to have gone up in well, I don't know if it's actually they'd put any more work into it. Well, they seem to suggest they have. But the idea will be, it's been described in the paper as a radical idea. It's actually happened before. There was a plan to actually have the LA Crocodiles, a team based in LA.
Yeah.
So they're looking to play for premiership points in either LA or San Francisco. LA, the NFL can't win over LA.
Yeah.
So as early as 2020, the idea would be they reckon it could net the clubs more than $1 million and will be a GWS home match. And they say it's becoming a reality with Bombers CEO Xavier Campbell and Giants CEO Dave Matthews working on it. They want to try and do it to launch the season or during the bye rounds. It would be played at 8 p.m. local time, which would translate to a twilight TV start for Australian East Coast cities.
I'll tell you, the biggest issue they're going to have here, and Eddie Maguire addressed it on his radio show this morning, is that there's no grounds to play on. There's plenty of NFL grounds, and there you can play rugby there, you can play soccer, you can play American football, but they're far too small to be playing AFL on. And even AFLX didn't work on a smaller ground,
Well, here's my problem with it, which are multiple, is when you look at it, you go, GWS have been given all the money in the world to try and win over Western Sydney, which they're struggling massively. And it's a hard thing to do, so I'm not even being critical. It's just incredibly hard. So if you can't even win over where you're based, why are you putting I know there's a money factor, but why are you putting in the effort? This to me just distracts people from what they actually are meant to be doing. If I was the AFL, I'd be saying, your job is to win over Western Sydney.
Exactly.
Do not move a home game to another country.
Yeah.
This is not going to do anything. We all know it's going to fail in the long term too. That's the amazing thing about these things. Like these things never work.
It's not going to. if they do play a match in LA and they find somewhere to do, that immediately the whole of America is going to fall in love with Australian football. Nobody's going to care.
And then you also now look at Essendon, and the same applies a bit to GWS, but Essendon as well. Essendon, you and I grew up with Essendon being a powerhouse of the league. Essendon for the past 20 years have been a punchline. Yeah. You know, and then an absolute disaster with the supplement scandal. So... And I'm not saying that to be harsh. I mean, you ask Essendon supporters. I was chatting to an Essendon supporter I know the other day. Like, they can't even win a final. Like, why are you putting any effort into this? This is a distraction. Going over to the US in the middle of the year. I mean, none of these things are helpful to you winning a premiership. Like, they're all just these execs get these ideas.
Well, see, I think Kevin Sheedy's behind it.
Well, he suggested it originally.
And look, I agree
if you went for every idea Kevin Sheedy offers,
there'd be no games in Victoria anymore.
There wouldn't be a non-themed game left.
But you're dead right, especially about GWS. I mean, if the AFL thinks playing a game for points in California is going to be beneficial or a moneymaker, go right ahead.
Yeah.
But don't use GWS. You know. I don't know, play Collingwood and Richmond or something. You know.
But I mean,
teams who don't need, the clubs who don't need the money.
I've said this about the China game. The China game makes some sense to me because Port Adelaide make a lot of money out of it, right? And it's and so maybe this LA game, would make money. But on the flip side, is money the problem GWS and Essendon are having at the moment? If I'm an Essendon supporter, I'm like going, just win a final. It's all I care about. Every bit of effort at that club should be about winning a final. Not like, none of this stuff, it just takes up the time. Like, to organise a trip like that and a game like that is a lot of administrative effort. So that means a heap of people at your club are spending a fair bit of time on something that is not core to what you're actually meant to be doing.
Well, they're talking about doing it in 2 years' time, and it'll take 2 years of work with certain amount of people on full-time salaries at these clubs as well as at the AFL to make it happen.
Yeah. I can't believe the AFL aren't just saying no.
Just we'll revisit that idea maybe down the track.
They can never resist the shiny thing, can they? It's this, we've never been able to get around it. And my thing is, you got to win over Queensland's not won over. New South Wales not won over. If the AFL whole thing of like wanting to take over new territories, I get all that. But you're not even doing those that well, some of them. So, just on the whole coronavirus thing, and Tilly's Heel wrote in, is the coronavirus scare just a massive conspiracy perpetrated by big toilet paper?
I do like a good conspiracy theory.
It's so true. That and hand sanitizer.
Is the big toilet paper combine, is that like the military industrial complex?
The toilet paper hand sanitizer complex. It is annoying having to suddenly wash our hands, let's admit it.
Yeah, that's true.
We've all had to start doing that. Sam Thrunk wrote in, is it more painful hearing Dr. Peter Larkins talk about the coronavirus or having coronavirus?
Doc Larkins, haven't heard much from Doc in recent times. But at least this gives him an opportunity to get his head in front of a camera, which is his favourite position.
Just on news while we're looking at the various things, if, trying to win over America, back home, the Northern Territory is wanting to put in a shock bid in the, I think this is in the Herald Sun today, to join Tasmania in the race for an AFL licence. The AFL Northern Territory is set to unveil a 100-page report. That's a good size.
Somebody's been writing.
Of 80 pages of photos of Indigenous kids playing on red dust. That's all that's the paintings, the pictures are going to be.
Yeah.
It's been funded by the NT government, exploring the viability of a 19th or 20th AFL franchise. AFL Northern Territory officials are eyeing the establishment of a team by 2030 that would be dominated by Indigenous players and play out of Darwin and Alice Springs.
Well, at least they're in no real hurry.
And a big part of that is a lot of the AFL, the players that come out of the NT, there's been a drop-off in draftees, or a lot of people that do get drafted don't last. I like the idea of an NT team, and I like the idea of a Tasmanian team.
Yeah.
My real problem is with all of these is the practicality of there's just, I don't think we can have a 20 team
20
league.
clubs. Yeah.
Because I thought when GWS and
Gold Coast
came in, the talent pool isn't big enough. It means the bottom two clubs are just woeful.
Yeah.
Like not just, I mean, Melbourne's been one of them, but, Gold Coast, like completely not even able to compete against
exactly.
the top AFL sides. Like, just embarrassing. And the standard overall goes down. And there's a point where, can we really support 20 teams? I mean, the unspoken thing in that is, if you were starting from scratch, which you're not, there's way too many teams in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So you'd look at that first. But the problem is, unless you're willing to cut Melbourne sides, it's...
And that,
I don't know how you're going to work
as has been
all this.
shown in the past, that is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and do you? So I don't know how you do. I don't know how they actually do this. I have a feeling that the AFL are doing this thing of going, why don't we have a process in place for Tassie and Northern Territory to go through to keep them busy, with no real plan of actually ticking off.
I think they've always sort of suggested that to the Tasmanians, is that jump through these hoops and what have you, and we'll have a look at it.
Yeah.
But they know full well. It's like in governments, never ask for a report that you don't know the answer to anyway. And
or put it in a committee where it takes forever and never gets actually decided. I don't know. Do you think it can be done?
No, I just can't see it. And not just for the dilution of the talent pot, not enough good players. I just don't know if there's the support there to have it.
Well, the population of the Northern Territory in total is about 200,000 people.
Yeah.
So when you consider that, it's a tiny population.
Yeah.
So if if you go in the economic argument, the talent's probably there in places, but
oh look, I just can't see, and at this point, and especially given that TV and broadcast rights underwrites all the money that goes through the AFL.
Yeah.
And they're going to be really going to find it difficult over the next decade or so to even maintain the amount of money they get at the moment, rather than going up and up and up like they have in the past, just due to the changing nature of the media beast. I just can't see it ever being, possible.
They'd be better, I reckon, to put a lot of effort into a more high-profile, better organised second-tier comp.
Yeah.
And then if that comes up in ability, you then, and I mean, if you keep adding at the top, then all the stuff we hear with, them investing in grassroots and that needs to increase a lot.
Yeah.
So it might take a long time to get the skill level up. You might be able to do this in 10 years from now or something, but it's a bit like with the AFLW, unless you have the pipeline and enough going through it, it doesn't really work. NBL finals are on at the moment. Did you watch any of it? I went to the United game where they killed the Sydney Kings.
Yeah, I watched that. It was
amazing.
Absolutely, I've never seen anything
like
it.
It was like a 32-0 run in the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean...
And the place was jumping. It was one of the loudest crowds I've ever heard.
Yeah. And they're playing... When's Game 3? Is that tonight?
Tonight.
I think? Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see... I mean, surely after that performance, United are going favourites. But... surely Sydney will improve. And Bogut, you watch Bogut's going to come out swinging tonight.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a back problem at the moment, I reckon. I find it really interesting that, and I know this was compared in the A-League and the NBL were compared in a couple of articles about how the NBL are going really well and the A-League are not.
Yeah.
And it really got football fans annoyed because, soccer fans, even if you call it soccer, when you call it football soccer, I'm someone that likes football, goes to victory games a lot.
Yeah.
But there is an element of their fans that drive people away because they are just so
rabid.
Oh, it is unbelievable. I'm not saying there's not. I'm not talking about violence or flares. I'm not talking about that because they often will go, "Oh, there's violence at AFL games," and there is. There was a brawl after the state of origin in the city. I mean, AFL fans.
That upset about
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this like. You're not a true football fan unless the only code you like is football.
Yeah.
They kind of have this view, or if you come to it with it's not my number one sport, but I really enjoy it. It's almost like you're not the one true faith.
You're not welcome.
And so they got really annoyed about it. But sitting at the NBL game the other day and then going to a few A-League games this year, it is palpable that the NBL is it's still small. I'm not saying it's doing everything as big or good as the A-League or vice versa, and I'm not comparing them completely. But it just goes to show you look at rugby union, you look at all the various leagues. If your administration is clear on what it's doing, you do know it has a huge impact.
Sure.
And you look at it, I mean, in Victoria, you and I live in Victoria. Have you got any idea about anything to do with Western United, the new A-League team that's played this season? Have you ever seen anything really about them?
I wouldn't even know what colours they wore.
I went and looked into it because they might be moving away from Geelong.
They're based in Geelong, are they?
They've got part of it in Geelong, and I think they're having some... The BBL's going to be there next year, but it's just it is amazing noticing how the NBL is flying at the moment off a low base. Like I kind of think Larry Kesselman came in and just did the basics right.
Yeah, he came in, I reckon, at the right time, and he got the basics right.
Yeah,
and now you say it is absolutely flying, and I know amongst kids it is huge. It is huge.
Yeah, it was always like...
Basketball's always been popular with kids, but they're into the NBL now as well as the NBA.
Yeah.
It used to be just they'd watch the NBA. They still do that. They play their 2K and stuff like that, but they take a real interest in watching Melbourne United.
Yeah.
And even the Phoenix, who started this year.
Yeah.
They're not doing much wrong in the NBL, I've got to say.
Anyway, it was a fun night. And so another story that came up that you and I are laughing about is Warwick Capper.
Yeah.
Always interesting. He came out to admit he would have sex at halftime when he was playing, I think for... I wasn't sure whether he said the Swans or the Lions. It might have been the Bears, sorry. But this is the quote. Back then, I used to have sex in the toilets at half time. Now it's don't show your any emotion, don't wear tight shorts, don't wear white boots, don't do a handstand, don't kick 100 goals. He's saying how it's not the same anymore. So it's the fact that you can't have sex in the toilets and this was apparently with his wife at the time, he says.
Yeah, Joanne.
He was asked to clarify this. He said, yes, I had sex at half time with Joanne. I'd be tired for the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. So I sat in the square until I got my energy back.
I'll go out on a big limb here and just call bullshit on this whole story.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Kappa would never... It just simply wouldn't have happened.
Really? You don't think he could have?
No.
See,
he may have tried to do it once.
This is the least surprising story.
No, it doesn't surprise me that he's claimed to have done it.
Yeah,
I'll be surprised if it actually happened.
Yeah.
His teammates just simply wouldn't cop that. Yeah. He might have done it when he played for Oakley before he went to the Swans.
Do you reckon they even knew, though, he was doing it?
Oh, I suppose. It's theoretically possible. But I just think it's more of the deluded gibberish that comes out of Kappa's mouth on a regular basis. Honestly.
He is like dial a quote.
Oh, yeah. And every time you see him now, well, he's been in that ad
with Pamela Anderson
for Ultratune, yeah. And he's had a facelift, he's had his eyes done, he's had the whole shebang.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Oh, there's a lot going on within that head, except rational thought.
And that's where CTE was saying gets rubbed out with him, because he was like this when he played.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's no point in him trying to donate his brain when he's dead.
In a similar vein of people that thinks the world revolves around them and has a bit of a problem with self-awareness, you pointed this one out to me. Greg Norman has launched a biggest fan competition to find his biggest fan in the world. That in itself is not amazing, in that he's the winner will get to meet and play golf with Greg Norman. Yeah. So it's a wide net. He says in the first ever contest of it's called the search for Greg Norman's biggest fan. It's the quote of why he said it. He said, "Yesterday was my birthday, and upon reflection of 65 years of life and a 40-plus year career in golf, one of the most important things in my life has been the fans." So it's basically he launched the campaign because it was his birthday and he's reflecting on himself.
Oh, wait. You understand if it was a newspaper or a magazine or a radio station going, we're having a competition to find Greg Norman's biggest fan. Here's the prize. You get to play 18 holes with the shark.
Yeah.
People go, I'm in for that. I'll have a go.
But then he launches
but when he runs his own competition to find his biggest fan, I don't reckon he needs to cast outside his own room.
Yeah, I'm about to say, what are the odds that he is his biggest fan?
He should win it himself. And you get a framed nude photo of Greg chipping out of a bunker. Oh no, I read that and I thought, it's probably a Golf Australia magazine or Golf Digest.
It's actually Greg.
But it's actually Greg's running it himself.
And he's desperate. He's very keen to play golf with people who love him. It's like, if you love me, come hang out with me.
Oh, yeah, it's just magnificent. I'll be very interested to see who wins this, actually.
We should do one week who is the most sort of self-obsessed sports star in the world. Because Australia's got Warney, Mundine, Greg Norman.
Greg Norman's clubhouse leader at this point, but he'll probably choke before
Oh, God.
We might look at that in a couple of weeks' time because they're three good ones you've known already.
That's just the first I can think of top of my head, but there's a heap of them.
There'd be plenty. And again, it goes with the territory a bit in professional sport because to reach those dizzy heights to be the best or one of the best in the world, you have to have just that brutal ego.
You have to have that self-confidence to drive you through everything.
Yeah.
You got to there's almost like you need to believe there's a sense of almost like you're chosen. There's a sense of destiny to it. Like if you don't believe that, you kind of don't get through all the dark times as easily.
Yeah, true.
But there are some that really
take it to another level.
And I think Greg's constant photos of himself in the nude.
He's done it more than once in the last 12 months.
Oh, yeah, he's done it a few times.
Yeah. He's never been unhappy with himself, put it that way. But I reckon he's reached a new level of self-happiness lately.
I would give anything for him to announce himself as the winner of that comp. That would make my life.
If he did that, it would at least show that he's got a sense of humour about himself.
Yeah.
But I can't see it.
On that note, we will be back next week.
Let's hope so.
Let's going for 4 in a row.
Yeah.
A whole month.
Let's hope we don't get knocked out and, we'll just remember to fist bump total strangers just to be safe.
Everyone remember to fist bump out there. And we'll see you next week.